Hello my friends who are listening to Ebird Online, and today guys, you're going to love me. I've got some great gossip for you. Now as you know, I covered the story of Danielle and Yohan last week, and Danielle had made the decision to make her move from New York to the DR absolutely permanent. She says she never wants to go back to America as long as she lives. The only problem was, the agreement she'd had with Yohan, her husband, was that when they got married, she was going to apply for a visa for them both to live in the US together. And guys, I've got to say, I was absolutely racking my brains thinking, why would you want to make this move? How are you going to earn money in the DR? Everyone's trying to come out of the DR. No one's trying to go in. What's wrong with you? And all she could really say is, I want to be on the beach. I want to live by the sea and eat mangoes. I suggested Miami, very helpfully I thought, although loads of you thought that I was saying Miami's as cheap as the DR. I didn't think that for a second. I was just pointing out places that were cheaper than New York, which is basically prohibitively expensive, especially post-COVID, and somewhere that was Spanish-speaking, a little bit more laid back than New York, and obviously has got a beautiful beach. I'm sorry if I caused any offence, but all I meant was, yeah, Miami might be a good option for you. Also, Miami's really big, so there are areas of Miami that are cheaper than others. Anywho, I just couldn't understand if it was the sea that she wanted, she wouldn't just choose somewhere in the US. I couldn't understand why she was so dead set on living in the DR. I also couldn't understand why she was risking her relationship by unilaterally changing their plans, ergo scuppering Yohan's dreams. And no, Danielle, you're not Yohan's dream. The United States of America is. But then I think you know that. You very well know the nature and quality of your transactional relationship. And on top of all that, by moving when she did, she was losing $15,000 a year from her pension. To qualify for this money, she only needed to stay one more year. But she was refusing. I was racking my brains and reading my comments, and thank the Lord, my subscribers, honestly, literally you guys are the best subscribers on the internet. Well, they clued me in on exactly what was happening. But just before I fill you guys in, let's hear from the lovely Danielle.
But I've been running a yoga and wellness business since 2018. That motivates me to break out my computer and show him how to use a spreadsheet. This way he can start keeping track of how much he's making every month and how the income column needs to be much larger than the expense column.
Oh really, Danielle? I'm so glad you know all about business. But there seems to be some evidence that, well, maybe you don't know quite as much as you think you do. So first up, a few thanks. So a massive thank you to Kate Pickard, Alan and Lily Bear, who all filled me in on the information that Danielle has just filed for bankruptcy. What? Yes, that's right, bankruptcy. Guys, let's get into it, but just before we do, thank you so much to everyone who comments on my videos each week. It does make a difference. And thank you to all my subscribers, but if you've yet to do so, consider subscribing, it's fun over here. And also please don't forget to smash the like button if you enjoyed this video. Right, so without further ado, let's get into it. Danielle, her bankruptcy and her sheer lack of business acumen. So like I usually do, I decided to head over to Starcasm, which is where I get all of my 90-day fiancé gossip, and I'm going to put a link down below in information so you can read the article in depth yourself. But according to Starcasm, Danielle Gates filed for bankruptcy for $224,548.42. $250,000, you guys. What has she been doing? She only had a bloody yoga studio. Oh Lord, poor Shaida. Bilal's going to be using this one. And so apparently, Danielle initially filed for a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, which is a voluntary repayment bankruptcy, on January the 22nd, 2022. Oh look, 02222022. Seems like 2's a negative number for Danielle. Oh, and 224,000. Gosh, it's all the 2's. And then precisely 2 weeks later, she applied to have the filing changed to a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, which is basically liquidation, the dissolution of your business in entirety. And it means that none of your creditors or anyone that you owe money to gets paid, and you have to register as a bankrupt. And so apparently, according to the filing, Danielle's monthly income was $1,300 less than her monthly expenses. So considering that she was a teacher as well, she must have sunk her whole salary and every penny she owned into this so-called business of hers. But that's not all. Also included in this bankruptcy was the very high £4,000 New York rent that Danielle's been moaning on about. Oh, Danielle, you didn't have to live in Yonkers. You could have gone and lived in Brooklyn or Queens or Long Island, anywhere. Apparently not Hoboken, because that's a rip-off now as well, but there's many places you could have lived. But oh no, not Danielle. She wanted to live in Yonkers, and she was just racking up the bills. And yet again, Danielle misleads the world. She told everybody, I paid $4,000 in rent. No, you bloody didn't. I can see it all listed there on your bankruptcy filing. You didn't pay it. It turns out you'll be paying far more in rent in the DR than you ever did in New York. However little it is. It should have been $4,000 a month, but she didn't pay any rent. She also didn't pay her subway pass. What is it called? The Easy Pass or something? It's like $25 a month, but she didn't pay it and she listed it as a business expense. Guys, from what I can see from this bankruptcy filing, it's less of a bankruptcy and more of a bloody con. She literally put her whole life in this debt. She put $60,000 in student loan debt, $80,000 for an Easy Pass. She put $4,500, which was owed for parking tickets and penalties. Now guys, I know times are hard at the moment. And also times were hard during COVID. But Danielle, you had a tiny little yoga studio, which you did part-time outside of teaching. So it's not as if you took on a lease for a business property. And you didn't have any staff, you just worked there yourself. I honestly think at some point she just literally clocked out and decided, well, I'm just going to live my life, have the skincare I want, pay for $11 coffees, park wherever I want, drive in the bus lane, act as I please, and I'm going to chuck it all onto the bankruptcy, and then I'm going to skip out of the country and go and live in the DR. But I've got to say, everything now really does make sense. I think it's highly unlikely that you can file for bankruptcy and then still put in for a visa to bring Yohan over to the country. I know that you have to have a certain amount of money in the bank in order to file. Remember when Emily wanted to bring Kobe over because she was only working part-time and didn't have enough money? She had to get her dad to sign. So unless Danielle's got somebody who will sign for her, which I doubt, she hasn't even got the capacity to bring Yohan over. She has totally and utterly lied to this guy and screwed him over. When you're going bankrupt for $224,000, you know you're going bankrupt a very long time before you do. She had 9 months of rent, which she hadn't paid, on her own home. And just before she went bankrupt, she moved to the Bronx. Presumably because she knew she was going to have to stop paying the rent herself. And it was too expensive for her in Yonkers. As far as I'm concerned, Danielle's a liar and a confidence trickster. She should have just told Yohan the absolute truth from the outset and let him make his decisions. A lot of people have been putting in comments, oh, they're both scamming each other. Maybe, maybe not. As far as I'm concerned, the transactional relationship that these two entered into was Yohan's tall and good looking, Danielle gets to have eye candy on her arm, and in return for that, she brings him to America. Basically the same old story we always hear. So if Danielle is now deciding that she cannot bring him to New York, and not just now but more than likely forever, then surely she's broken the terms of their agreement. She promised him she was filing for his visa to come to America, and she knew good and well she had no capacity to do so. And on top of all that, this woman's got one slick mouth. In this week's episode, which I've yet to review, she was talking to Yohan as if he was a remedial peasant with learning difficulties. And she was saying, I've run my own business and you don't know what you're doing. I can't be with somebody who doesn't understand how to count. Danielle, from what I can see, Yohan's business, even though it only consists of a pile of rotting meat in the middle of a shop with flies crawling over it, even that is better than your business, Danielle. Much, much better and much more lucrative, I'll wager. Mind you, I guess all this rotting meat will mask the odour when Danielle's nothing more than a smell in the attic. Right, that's about everything. I would love to know what you think about this story. I've only seen Danielle for a couple of weeks, but I'm telling you now, she's hot on the heels of Big Ed in the unlikability scales. She's got a terrible, terrible attitude and even worse business acumen. So guys, please let me know what you think in comments down below. Do you think that she's scammed Yohan? Do you think it's right that she should be able to put everything into this bankruptcy? To me, it's actually just immoral. You're taking goods and services which you have no chance of paying for. Somebody will shoulder that cost. Honestly, I really do think it's bloody bad form. Please weigh in and let me know your thoughts. Right, I'm off. I'm going to go and review this week's shenanigans. But just before I go, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you've yet to. And also don't forget to smash the like button. It really does help my algorithm. Thank you so much for listening. You've been listening to Ebird Online and I bid you good day. Not you, Danielle. Not you.